Everyone's played Monopoly. You've played it. I've played it. I don't need to give it some weird saucy introduction. If for some reason you haven't played it, then congrats. If you watched my top 10 board game genre video, you saw my weird bit about Monopoly already. How many times have you played Monopoly? I guarantee you're not playing it right. Not that Monopoly is a legacy game. Monopoly Legacy sounds crazy as hell. It could be for how long it takes sometimes. But, well, since then, I've been commissioned by none other than Tekh to make a review of a specific copy of Monopoly. This is the one from my hometown, Tampa, Florida. Now, you may have heard about Florida and specifically Tampa in the past couple of days. I don't know. I'm filming this in part right before Election Day, so who knows what the fuck has happened since then. I may not even be alive. I think that Monopoly is probably more popular than Florida, and that more people would recognize Monopoly than they would Florida. This review is gonna go a little differently than usual because I'm going to make a review on why this version of Monopoly is different from the rest, and not a review of Monopoly. I'm sure you already have your own opinions about Monopoly, everybody does, but this version in particular was something that I was kind of looking forward to, and as soon as I started reviewing this copy, oh my god. So, some history about Monopoly. Monopoly, also published under the title The Landlord's Game, was published in 1933. The Landlord's Game is now reviewed as a predecessor to Monopoly to separate it from its extremely grimy past. This is the second game in a row that I have reviewed by Hasbro. If you watched my Betrayal at House on the Hill review, you already know how much I just love that company. So let's go back to the creator and the history of Monopoly. Did you know that Monopoly was invented as satire by none other than DC progressive Elizabeth Magie? She and her husband had brought it over to their friend's house and he stole it. Yes, Monopoly, which was created to highlight the vast income inequalities from the 1930s created by the Great Depression, was stolen and published by someone unironically. I mean, just the absolute audacity, the cojones, the gall, the unbridled boldness, the impotence, the chutzpah, the effrontery, the temerity of that absolute fucking imbecile. So that was back then, but what does that mean for us now? Well, as you can see, nothing has really changed. If anything, a board game where the landlord takes all your money and sends you to jail hits harder to home than ever. Monopoly is just a testament to the fact that capitalism is a disease, and that the problems we face as individuals and as a group are symptoms. But enough about that. I'm not going to release a political video right after the 2020 election. That sounds like an awful idea. That just isn't what we call in the industry a pro-gamer move. Since Monopoly was stolen, let's talk about what's happened to the game since then, including fictional versions like the ones in The Simpsons with Monopoly Capital City that they show in the show. There are a registered 1,144 different versions of this game. There's actually a make-your-own-opoly, which effectively makes the amount of monopolies infinite. Actually, the first board game that I ever bought was with my chore money, and it was a Pokemon Red and Blue version of Monopoly that came out in 1999. So before I get to the version-specific stuff about Tampaopoly, let's talk a little bit about what I think makes Monopoly tick. So, I've told you this before, but you're playing Monopoly wrong. Every house rule you've ever heard of just extends the game. Landing on Go doubles the amount of money that you get. That just puts more money in. Landing on free parking gets you all the money that's paid by community chest and chance cards. That just makes the game longer. As we know, Monopoly is infamous for how much time it takes. People will leave it on their kitchen tables because they leave the game and then come back to it later. Auctioning off properties, which nobody really does, significantly shortens the length of the game. If you're going to play Monopoly, please do that. It will make the game so much more enjoyable. Losing a turn is really dumb. Getting stuck in jail for 3 turns and not being able to do anything unless you pay a fine is pretty annoying. We already went over player elimination mechanics in a prior video, so we'll leave it at that. The dynamic of having one player be bank is also really dumb. Having one person manage everybody else's stuff and then take their own turn, and in turn making everybody wait on them, is just it's such a bad idea. You know, you could have done not paper money, you could have done larger quantities of the higher amounts of stuff, you could have had a scoreboard for that kind of stuff, you could have had a piece of paper even where you keep the amount of money that you have on it. That would have been so much more effective and way less time consuming. Also, being the banker does give you a distinct advantage in that you know what everyone has or what they're looking for or what they're going to do or what they can afford. It's definitely a disadvantage in the long run, I think, because not only is everybody waiting on you, but you're in charge of everybody's property, their money, the change that they want for that, and any house upgrades. And then, you know, of course, when it's your turn, you have to do all of that stuff for yourself. Rolling doubles to go again is fine because it causes staggering in the player order and the distance in between everybody, which is fine. But like I said earlier, one of the mechanics I really can't stand is when you add money to the free parking spot and people just get to pick it up. It just takes money that should have gone out of circulation and just puts it right back in, which makes the game longer. Most of the end game also just pertains to you hoping that you land on the go to jail spot or that you're in jail so that you land on the least amount of properties while other people are circling the board hoping that they land on your properties first. If you want to know how to win Monopoly, I would suggest getting all of the spots right before the jail and all of the spots after the jail up until the free parking spot. If you control that lane, you have a really good chance of winning because not only is that the highest foot traffic area and that these are the spaces that people land on the most, because even if they don't circle the board, they're always going to be going in and out of jail. That's just going to be a constant. And the other thing is that they actually have pretty decent prices and scale very well with the upgrades. Okay, I feel like I've complained about Monopoly enough, so let's get into the version-specific stuff of Tampa-opoly. So the only thing that's different with this game, along with a lot of other additions, is the name of the spaces that you land on and the character pieces. In Tampa-opoly, the metal character pieces are back in stunning HD, in that you'll see them as famous Tampa items: a shoe, a dog, a heart, teeth, a hand, and a pretzel. All of which you can imagine were made right here in beautiful Tampa Bay. Instead of houses and hotels, you now have city blocks and keys to the city, which are kept in this plastic bag that you have to open. I am definitely going to upgrade this to a Ziploc bag as soon as I'm done recording, because I was recording earlier and I put everything back in the box and then I opened it back up and I cannot tell you where I found all the pieces. I'm not sure I found all of them. They went everywhere. And lastly on the board, instead of chance and community chess cards, you have Big Fun and Contingency. Instead of railroads, you have city areas in Tampa, like Hyde Park, Ybor, Seminole Heights, and Channelside, which in real life are just the most gentrified areas of Tampa that I can think of, so instead of trains and railroads, we will call them gentrification stations. Jail is called Traffic Jam, and the free parking spot was changed to I Heart Tampa. The toll and tax spots are known as Sunburn and Buzz Off, and the utilities are Alligators and Florida Sunshine. So on the cover, you'll notice that we have pictures along with our locations. On the board, we do not. Also, these spots are not next to each other. Now that we've opened the box, let's look at the rest of the board. This board is horribly inconsistent. It starts off with deviled crab and Cuban sandwich, which are 2 pieces of food. The rest are all locations. I've never had and will never have a deviled crab. I don't even know how you would devil a crab, and I don't want to know. I don't think that Tampa is known for deviled crabs either. I think if you were to go around and ask people what Tampa was known for besides the Cuban sandwich, they would say something completely different. Then we move on to Lettuce Lake Park, which I was so generously informed that whales are allowed there. I was born and raised in Tampa, and I have no idea what Lettuce Lake Park was, which is why I had to look it up in the first place. The last of the orange spots is the Lowry Park Zoo. This isn't Carol Baskin's tiger concentration camp that everyone watched a docu-series about back in March of this year. This is just a zoo. So, there you go. But, you know, it's only the second section. Can't be too hard on it. Let's just move on to the next one. So the next group is the restaurant section. Why restaurants aren't next to the 2 food groups, I have no fucking idea. But this is Dairy Joy, which is an old ice cream stand. Burns, which is some old steakhouse. And the Columbia. Disappointingly, not the Country. I went to high school actually with a member of the family who owns the Columbia restaurant currently, and one of these days I'm sure I will spill the beans on them. $10 and I spill the beans. And if you're part of that family, $20 and I don't spill the beans. So the next group of properties is amusement. So this includes Busch Gardens, which in case you don't know is a zoo with roller coasters that's run by a beer company. Also not Carol Baskin's concentration camp for tigers. Then you have Adventure Island, which is just a water park run by the same beer company. And then you have the Florida Aquarium, which repeatedly got shut down considering that it's like $30 a person to see a stingray. Which, You could easily see any of these sea creatures by looking over the edge of the Courtney Campbell Bridge. I'm also going to point this out now that none of the colors of this board game match with the originals, and I don't know why they did that. They didn't really have to, but sure. I don't know why you change it, but let's go with it. Next we have Gasparilla, which is the poor man's Mardi Gras. This happens in February every year, and it's basically just this one-day event where a bunch of mythical gay pirates led by a Captain Jack Swallows storms the bay. I'm waiting for one day real pirates to ravage this hellhole of a city. Then we have the Tampa Theater, which I've been told has since shut down as well, and Raymond James Stadium, which is home to the 2001, 2009, and upcoming 2021 Super Bowl. Not to make this video any more political than it already is, but this was also home to Trump's last Florida rally. This occurred on the same day as Biden's last Florida rally, and happened to be at one of the busiest intersections between I-275, I-4, and I-75. This was a drive-through rally to keep in part with the CDC social distancing regulations, and let's just say that traffic jam on here is a little bit of an understatement. Next, we move on to the museum section with the Art Museum and the Children's Museum, which I have never been to. The Museum of Science and Industry is called MOSI for short, similar to Jacksonville's Museums of Science and History, which is known as MOSH, which I think is an equally cool name. Fun fact, I actually had my high school homecoming here a couple of times. So that was pretty fun to have it in a science museum. Let it be known that I'm still really salty about how USF got MOSI shut down because they wanted their own football stadium because quote-unquote Raymond James Stadium, the stadium I mentioned earlier, was too big and too far away. So they never had people come to their games. Not because they're a bad football team or anything, but whatever. They wanted a stadium that was closer. Cool. Well, what's the only land owned by the city that's close enough to them? Oh, it is a museum for science for children. So they closed most of it down and they moved all of MOSI. It's still technically open, but it is now in the warehouse section of where they kept all of the MOSI stuff. They reduced what used to be this giant children's museum of science and industry and technology with an IMAX theater that was like, you know, the big dome one. They took it all and they moved it. They plan on tearing it down so they can start construction on the new stadium, which has plans to be just as big as Raymond James Stadium. You think you just take everything about MOSI and just cram it into a warehouse? Fuck you. Okay, sorry about that. The city of Tampa just sucks. Next property. Water time. We have Bayshore, Riverwalk, and Curtis Hickson. Honestly, I just think that Curtis Hickson is pretty overrated. It's just a spot in downtown Tampa on the water, which is like half of downtown Tampa, which I also think is overrated. Here's actually a picture of Jess and I at the beer festival that was held there in February of 2020, aka like a couple of days before the world started to end. This was also the last time I was ever seen outside. Lastly, we have the Bay in downtown Tampa. Well, first off, like 5 of these properties are in downtown Tampa, and the rest of them are just in the Bay, which encompasses the 7 counties that are around the Tampa Bay area. Honestly, it just being labeled the Bay scares me. If you control that property, do you have military presence? Do you control the air and the sea around it? Is it the water that you're controlling? Is it all of those counties? Is it some of the counties? Is it only the ones that touch water? I don't understand. I have no idea and I don't want an answer. Let it be known that my fingernails are red to represent the blood of anybody who happens to end up on the alligator spot and gets mauled. So that's it for all the spaces. One thing I will point out is that this board game was not made in Tampa, and it tells you there right on the front. This edition of Monopoly was made by the Late for Sky production company in Ohio. It just tells you it's like it's made in Cincinnati. It's not, I'm not surprised at all, right? I mean, the quality of it, everything like that screams not made in Tampa. Probably just made overseas somewhere, but designed in Cincinnati is just hilarious. Obviously, I don't have to tell you this, but the piece quality is just pure garbage, except for the metal pieces, which, are totally just nondescript. The cards and the paper money feel like shit as expected. I will give this board game a plus because there are no pieces in this board game that I want to eat. The pretzel, while tempting, is very clearly made out of metal. One day, I will eat it though. Let's look at the box again really quickly. It says here that Tampa is known as the Big Guava. I have never heard this in my life. Not once have I ever heard anyone from Tampa or talking about Tampa refer to it in that way. No one from Tampa has ever said that, and I can guarantee it. Just watch.
Hello?
Hey, Mom.
Hey.
Can you answer a quick question for me? Hello?
I'm here. Go ahead.
Can you answer a question for me?
Yeah.
Do you know what Tampa's nickname is?
What Tampa's nickname is?
Yeah, like it has a specific like moniker to it. Do you know what Tampa's called? Do you know like New York is the Big Apple? Okay, good, thanks. It's called the Big Guava. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
I'm recording a video right now, and I just wanted to know if you know what the nickname for Tampa is.
Do not.
It's like it's got like a name for the city, like how New York has the Big Apple.
Right. No, I know what temp is.
It's the Big Guava.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard that before, the big guava.
Hello, gamers.
Hello.
Can I ask you all a question? I am recording for a upcoming video.
Oh man, what is the question?
Okay. I want everyone to save their answers for at once, right? So that nobody cheats. Tampa
Cool.
has a nickname,
Tampon.
like a city nickname. Does anybody know what it is?
Cigar City.
No. That's a very good guess, but no. So like it has like a moniker. So Cigar City is more like Ybor, but
Okay.
like New York has the Big Apple.
Yeah, Dayton's the gem city.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what is Tampa? It's not Cigar City.
Bitch city.
Tampon Town.
It is, get this, the Big Guava.
The big.
Are you fucking kidding me?
The Big Guava. I am legitimately convinced that this is just a jest and that my leg is being pulled. No one has ever called it the Big Guava. Apparently this started back when a columnist for the Tampa Tribune in the 70s was jealous of New York being called the Big Apple, so he called in one of the articles for the newspaper Tampa the Big Guava. This clearly did not stick. However, I will let you know that there is an event, apparently, called Guavaween, which I've never heard of. And basically the Saturday before Halloween, there's an event. It just takes place on the last Saturday of October every year. That's not Halloween. Not once have I ever heard anybody talk about this. I am convinced it is made up. I refuse to believe otherwise on this. It's not can guavas even grow in Tampa? I have no fucking idea. Okay, time for the drink pairing. I have already mentioned Big Storm's Tropic Pressure on my Zool Summer Pavilion review, so I'm not going to suggest that one. Instead, I will go for a couple of my favorite beers that come out of the Tampa Bay area. I am not being paid by any of these people yet. So first we have Cigar City Brewing's High Life. No, it is not JLA. For some reason, most people outside of Florida don't know how to pronounce this. I don't blame them, because I understand that it's a cultural thing or whatever, but come on. If you're watching this video though, I'm positive you've heard of High Life before, so I'm pretty sure that if you're listening to this, you know how to pronounce it, and you know how good it is. I actually prefer Cigar City Brewing's Florida Cracker over everything else. It has coriander and orange peel, which is very similar to a Kraft Blue Moon or a Fat Tire even. Next, I'm going to mention Tampa Bay Brewing's Reef Donkey. I don't like this beer. I want to. I really want to because of the name, but I don't really like it. I've had this beer plenty of times, but more often than not, ironically, because of the name. Reef Donkey is like kind of an inside joke with my friends and I, because the first time I had mentioned it to some of my friends that drink beer, they thought I was like saying a slur or a euphemism for a slur, when basically the name for Reef Donkey comes from the amberjack fish, which is known to kick a lot, hence its nickname Reef Donkey, and they named it after that fish in its nickname. It's an okay beer with a fun name that's from Tampa, so you know I had to mention it. Difficulty-wise, I am giving Monopoly a 1.1 out of 5. I'm not giving it a 1 out of 5 because clearly all you need to do is be able to read and you can play the game. It's not hard. You know somebody that plays it. Monopoly is something you could probably teach to a baby. However, everyone seems to keep playing it wrong, so that's why it gets the extra 0.1. If you actually read the directions and knew how to play it, then you'd be fine. And it wouldn't be as bad of a game as it is. The difficulty rating and the overall rating that I'm giving this version of Monopoly applied to all versions of Monopoly. This is a very generic thing. I'd like to point out as well that for the next time you happen to be coerced into playing Monopoly with your family that doesn't play board games or your little cousin who doesn't know how to play any other board game, there is a fast version of Monopoly. Basically, you hand everybody 4 different properties and you make them pay the normal amount for it, and you set your timer for an hour, and at the hour's end, it doesn't matter if you're in or out, whoever has the most money at the end of that hour wins. That's it. It is a much faster and slightly more enjoyable version of the board game, unless you happen to land on a couple of spots and run out of money immediately. About the overall rating, you're probably wondering what I'm gonna give Tampaopoly. Well, I hate landlords, I hate capitalism, I hate dice rolling, I hate cheaply made board games, I hate spin-off cash grabs, and I hate the history behind this game too. 1 out of 10. Is this as bad as Pantone? Probably not. Am I ever gonna play Monopoly again? Hopefully not. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Thank you again to Tekh for commissioning me to make this review. Shoutouts to Internet Rico, at Rico on Twitter, for being one of my favorite Tampa-born homies. I love all of his stuff. Go follow Internet Rico on Twitter. He makes a lot of funny jokes. They're way better than mine. Do not follow me on Twitter. If you're gonna give one of us a follow, make sure it's him. Love him to death, love his content. He tweets all the time about piss and cum and Orlando and Tampa and Nashville and a lot of stuff. Winston the Poop, Chevy Truck Month. Have you heard of it? That's him. Thank you again to Tekh for commissioning me to make this and providing me with the copy. I will be giving it back to you, and you'll be glad to know that I'm not setting this copy on fire either. Do you want your own commission? Join the other contributors in line. Want to see what board games I have access to? Just go ahead and check the Board Game Geek account. It's constantly updated over there. You know, at least 1 to 2 board games a week I get access to. So if you haven't checked it in like a month, I promise there's like 8 to 10 more board games that you haven't even heard of that are on there now. So there's always options. It's ever expanding. Links to all these things will be in the description below. Check out the Ko-fi, drop a couple bucks if you like it. These videos do not make money. I make these videos regardless. You don't owe me anything. If you really want to do me a favor, I would also really enjoy it if you could share the video with somebody that you know. If you could subscribe if you aren't already and ring that notification bell, it really helps me out. If you would like some guidance, I would suggest sharing this video with somebody from Tampa, or as we like to call ourselves, tampons. The comment question for this video is down below. I would like to know what your favorite or least favorite spot on the board was for the Tampaopoly edition. I want to know if anything really stuck out to you or if you would replace anything. You know, what would you like to have seen on the board? For me, I hated Deviled Crab. I thought it's a completely useless space in the game that is not symbolic of Tampa in any way, shape, or form, and is just on there to allow Cuban sandwiches to be on the board. I would have preferred a space instead of like Lettuce Lake Park. You could have had like Al Lopez or something near USF, or you know, some other suburb that's a little bit more representative of Tampa than a food that like most people aren't eating there. And that's it. Oh no, I'm going into a tunnel. Goodbye.
Be frightened, I'll stand up to all the pain and turmoil. Just believe in myself, won't rely on others. I get this power to wipe out